Thank you very much, Lorraine, and I really appreciate the invitation to come here today. It's a very busy day. It's a very bright day, and it's a very exciting day because not only here in Longford, but this morning, Minister Murphy and our colleagues from right across government and right across the local government sector launched the Urban Regeneration and Development Fund, which Longford, I suppose, along with the Rural Regeneration Fund, being administered by Minister Ring's department, has a great opportunity to benefit from. But I'll come back to that in a minute. I know your county well. I know many of your towns and villages here. I have either driven or cycled and indeed spent a lot of time on the water in and around your county. It is a surprising county. It's a county full of treasures and interests and so on, and more people need to know about it, and more people will know about it, I suppose, because of some of the projects that are underway here. Whether it is from Lochgowna or down to Newton Cashel, all of the villages and so on, the Royal Canal that traverses it, the Shannon Waterway, indeed, that sort of makes up its western boundary. It's a county full of attractions and interests and so on. It's also a county that I suppose has come through tough times. We all know of, I suppose, the challenges we've had to face after the economic crash of 2008, 9, 10 and so on. And we also know how, I suppose, it left a legacy in this county because of, I suppose, some of maybe the lesser sort of high quality examples of urban planning and development, a lot of the unfinished estates, I suppose, and that issue particularly was permanent. But Longford County, I'm happy to say, was the first county to really rise to the challenge in relation to addressing that. Previous chief executives and officials here in Longford County Council, together with the council, led the way in relation to recognising that was an issue, a legacy that had to be addressed and addressed quickly. And indeed, if we look at the Camlin Quarter itself, and thinking, I suppose, of Battery Court and places like that, which were amongst the first of the unfinished housing developments that we had to focus on, it's great to see Longford County now, your local authority, the staff here that we know so well down through the years, really, I suppose, looking again and looking afresh at the potential of your town centre here, which has so much to offer. Whether it is for fortune or misfortune, I don't know. I'm married to a Mayo woman, and on all my trips from Maynooth in Kildare, where I live, down to Ballina to visit the in-laws, has to be done. I always knew Longford from sort of going up the main street, left at Longford Arms and straight out the road for Mayo. And it wasn't actually until that long ago that actually I discovered, of course, Barrack Street and I suppose the very beautiful quarter that has been developing around the Camlin now. And that's what I keep saying about Longford. Longford is a surprising place. It has all of these beautiful attributes in terms of its towns and villages and countryside that hopefully, I suppose, even with projects like Centre Parks and so on, people will discover more about. Centre Parks indeed is a project our department and I suppose our thinking would very, very, very much support. And the Camlin Quarter, I suppose, from Connolly Barracks through to the Camlin River itself. Obviously, the great work that Longford County Council has been doing for many years now around the regional sports facility, the linear park along the Camlin River and so on. You are now discovering and you are now focusing on what makes a great place and what puts a place on a map from the point of view of attracting in the type of investment, the type of tourists or visitors and so on that are really, I suppose, mark out the successful places around our country. So we are absolutely fully supportive of the work that's going on with your integrated area plan and maybe just to focus for a minute or two now in relation to the Urban Regeneration and Development Plan, or Development Fund. So it's obviously part of Project Ireland 2040, the National Planning Framework and the National Development Plan. And one of the things that we were keen in terms of, I suppose, putting together that project with our colleagues in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and I have to say with huge guidance and support from our ministers, Damien here, but also Minister Murphy, and right across government. In fact, I was saying to Simon Wall there from the county or the town architect from Mayo, I have never seen in my 20 years working in government the sort of the focus and the commitment around good planning, good placemaking, good urban and rural development from our current ministers and that. So there's been huge support. No other country in Europe has joined up a 20-year spatial plan and a 10-year capital programme, the first of two capital programmes in effect, to make, I suppose, that plan real. that is a real sort of mark of ambition and confidence for the future that I suppose now you're well poised to take advantage of. So, and again, maybe different from the spatial strategy, and thankfully, we didn't have so much focus when the National Planning Framework was being finalised around designation of places. My place is a gateway, or my place is a hub, or a county town, whatever it is. We didn't have that sort of focus because the National Planning Framework is a very, very different animal. But I think people are starting to realise that now from the National Spatial Strategy. It's not about setting places against each other in terms of you're one thing and another place is another thing. In fact, National Planning Framework, National Development Plan, Project Ireland 2040 is more of a toolkit. It's more of a series of mechanisms, funds, yes, and other instruments that places can use themselves to reinvent themselves and to make more use of the advantages and the strengths that you have locally. So it was with great pleasure that we launched the Urban Regeneration and published the Urban Regeneration and Development Fund last Friday. And it's one of 4 special funds which are under the NDP. We've had the Climate Change Adaptation Funds, Disruptive Technologies Funds launched by Ministers in Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment, and Business, Enterprise and Innovation. URDF today, and the RRDF comes in the next few days. And we very much see all of these funds in effect giving you the funds, the resources, the mechanisms to reinvent your own places. And what a turnaround when you think about it. Not 10 years ago from when we were effectively bankrupt and we were dealing with unfinished housing estates. It's an incredible performance by any yardstick. But I suppose the degree to which we actually capitalise on all of that and learn from those mistakes and move on to a whole new sustained period and process of progress and development is about actually what you're doing here today. Looking at the centre of our towns and villages here in Longford, right across the country, and using the mechanisms that are there for you now to reinvent, reimagine, repurpose those locations. I'm always struck when I travel around your county, indeed, how you have made a fabulous job of so many of the villages. I mean, Arda, obviously, a location that has been an award winner in terms of tidy towns and so on, whether it is Ballinaleave, there's lots of different places. Clondra out the road in relation to, I suppose, what's been achieved with our colleagues in Waterways Ireland in terms of, reinterpreting a canal village. So a lot of the Longford smaller towns and villages have, I suppose, really sort of been turned around through great community work, support of your local authority, good planning and so on and so forth. Maybe Longford Town, as I suppose your county town and a key regional location, hasn't benefited as much from maybe that sort of thinking in the past. Maybe the focus has been about, the big industrial parks of the housing estates at the edges and so on, some successful, some not so successful. But this is now really a very clear statement from your authority that it's time to look at the heart of your town and I suppose the potential that it has in terms of rejuvenation. So our fund is open. The closing date will be I think it's the end of September later on this year. You have 3 months or so to put together proposals in relation to, I suppose, that represent a vision for the future of your town, a partnership, a synergy, pulling together the different funding sources, pulling together the public sector, pulling together the private sector, communities and so on, in a realistic but ambitious vision, if you like, for the transformation of your places. We're ultimately looking for 2 categories of projects, and this is all in a presentation that I'm sure, Lorraine, you can send around. I'm not using the presentation because nobody can see it in the back of the room, and so maybe it's better anyway just to hear it from me rather than trying to squint at the screen and look at the words. But we're looking for 2 categories of projects. We have €100 million nationally for next year, which is a not inconsiderable sum, and we're looking for shovel-ready projects, I suppose, that are really about urban regeneration next year. But we are also looking for Category B projects, and these are really, I suppose, looking to develop a very strong pipeline of initiatives and projects which will unfold over the coming years and so on, bearing in mind that, I suppose, across the 4 funds, and we very much want to see people use the 4 funds in a coordinated and integrated way. Across the 4 funds, there's €10 billion available in direct exchequer. This is not recycled money or money taken from others. This is new money that's available for investment in places and placemaking out over the next decade. It is an unprecedented commitment by a government in relation to good planning and local and community development. So the fund is open. All of the details are on our website, www.npf.ie, and obviously on the Project Ireland 2040 website. I won't bore you with the details in relation to all the criteria and the marking and so on and so forth. Just to say this, that from our department's point of view and from my team's point of view, not that we have an endless team of resources and so on, but we very much want to work with you. We will be available to help you, to ensure that every part of the country maximises, I suppose, the potential that is available from these funds. And more importantly, and most importantly of all, that we make a lasting difference to our country and to the various different places and for our communities. Because all of this planning and placemaking and so on, very good and so on, it's very good for a planning person like me and so on, but it is fundamentally about improving conditions for our citizens, for our people and for our communities. So as long as we have that at our core, we won't go too far wrong. So Lorraine, thanks for the invitation, and I'll be here for the rest of the afternoon in relation to sort of fielding any questions or getting out and about and having a look at some of the ideas. There are loads of ideas I have in my head, but I mean, I'm just that official from Dublin. You know more about your own local communities and so on. Certainly I'd love to see the Royal Canal come back into the centre of Longford again and connect with Camlin in terms of the Greenway, and I suppose bring that whole activity tourism and that whole sort of, I suppose, all the possibilities that creates, you know, and so on. And I remember seeing some of the old boat shops up when the Royal Canal Harbour was actually just down the road here and so on, and then obviously the railway kind of partly impacted on that and so on and so forth. So hopefully we will see that sort of, I suppose, possibility come back, and all of the good placemaking and so on that creates. Because you have a great town, you have a remarkable place here and so on. I know it well, been through it many, many times. And hopefully, I suppose, with the work that you're doing now, the engagement with the community, and I really, really hope that citizens, ordinary people, engage with this process, because I do think the planning process at times is a little bit too maybe associated with the officials and the experts and so on, you know. So I do hope to see those post-its and ideas up on boards and so on from ordinary people, that ultimately the planning process is there to serve. Thank you very much.